What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in for another episode of A Convo with. Today, we have a very exciting guest, Natalie Chou, McDonald's All-American, UCLA alum, and she'll be returning to play with the Perth Redbacks in the 2025 season. Natalie Chou, welcome to the podcast. I know it's early over there. Thanks for waking up.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited for this conversation.
Yeah, how are you doing? I mean, I know you've just finished a season in New Zealand, and then you're going to have a little bit of time off and then head over to Perth, Australia to play. How did everything go in New Zealand, and where are you right now?
Yeah, so right now I'm back home in Dallas, Texas, and my season ended at the beginning of December, and so I took a good amount of time off, and yeah, I traveled a lot. I went to Japan, and then I decided I should probably come home and see everyone and see my family and my dog and everything. So I'm back home right now, and I'm just getting ready and prepping for the next season. So yeah, in like about a month. I head over to Perth in about a month.
And then you have training camp and all that. How long is kind of the runway until your first game?
Yeah, I'll have about 2-3 weeks to get myself acquainted, but this will be my third year in Perth, and I'll be playing with the same coach. So I'm kind of used to the system, and I know my teammates, so I don't think the transition will be too bad.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
I know that this has been kind of just a hotter topic of late, especially within women's basketball. But I just wanted to ask, what's your experience? I mean, you could talk about New Zealand, you could talk about Australia, or just in general playing overseas. How's that been for you?
Oh, I love it. It's always been a dream of mine, even when I was younger, to play pro and to get paid to play basketball and also to travel the world while doing so. And my experience has been so great. I've gotten to play in Germany, Sweden, New Zealand, like we said, and then Australia, and it's just been a really, really good experience.
Oh, that's awesome to hear, because I feel like so many people that I talk to, it's like they have like these horror stories and things that have happened. And then the other thing that everybody, at least like when I was coming out of college, granted, this was like 15 years ago, but people just talk about how lonely it is, how difficult it is to live in a foreign country. Have you had any of that? How's it been?
Yeah, I guess I was kind of sugarcoating it, but I really have been loving my experience. But I think, like, for an example, my first year in Germany, my team went bankrupt in like the middle of the season, and then we were like all sent home, and it was just like a whirlwind. So that was, I guess, was kind of tough, but I still take it like as a positive because I got to explore a new country and stuff and meet awesome people. But yeah, like you said, it can get kind of lonely and stuff, which is something that I guess I'm getting used to. But the good thing about basketball, I guess, is that we have like a designated group of people that we automatically kind of have to get along with. So that's good. We'll never be like too lonely because we have our teammates and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. What are some of the ways that you try to pass the time?
Yeah. It depends. It definitely depends on where I am. Like when I'm in Perth, Australia, I'm at the beach like every day. And
Nice.
that's just like what I do, and I just lay and I do love to read, so that. But I make it a point in whatever city I'm in to just explore and just try to just really be present in that way. And something that I really like to do is like I have a collection in my room of like library cards, and so because I do love to read, and so I have like it's pretty cool all the places that I've lived in. I have like a library card, so yeah, that's a
Oh,
fun fact. Yeah,
that's cool. That's super cool.
yeah.
Man, I feel like you take advantage of the opportunity so much more than I have in certain situations. A lot of my teammates. That's really cool that you're like kind of exploring, checking out different countries, and I guess
What do you usually do?
the only time I've played overseas was when I was in the CBA, the P League, or TPBL. And so in all three of these leagues, it's Mandarin speaking. And so like that's why I'm like, I don't know if it really totally can. Like I am playing not in the US, but like, you know, I'm fluent in the language that is spoken there. And on top of that, like naturally, I've been to I've been to Asia a lot, and so I already had like a designated, agency, designated business team, and so there's always like a ton of built-in people and friends that are around.
Yeah.
Um, so I would say that like usually I spend time with them, but I would say like what you were talking about in terms of really taking advantage of the city, I don't always do that, especially when I'm on the road, traveling. Like I pretty much I'm like a homebody, so I stay in the hotel room a lot and things like that, and that's something that I kind of regret. I kind of wish that, especially early on, like I wish I lived a little bit more and just like explored more, and did different things. So that's something that like even my teammates, it was funny. One of my teammates, he's Palestinian, but he's from Jordan. And he recently we had 2 days off. So I think the coach gave us Sunday and Monday off. So on Tuesday, he came up to me and he was like, I hate when we have 2 days off. I'm like, what? Why? Like, that was amazing. And he was like, because like all I do is I think about my family. I miss them. I miss my wife and my kids. And like, I don't have, like, I don't really know what to do or where to go. And I'm just like lonely. And that kind of like put everything back in perspective because, I'm here and I have like my wife and my kid and I have my family and I have a whole bunch of people. My little brother lives down the street from me. And so, yeah, I have a very spoiled experience. But I've definitely heard, that loneliness to the point of like a lot of my former teammates, they retired because of it, like
Yeah.
they were just like, I can't do it anymore. It's so lonely. It's so much pressure. Like you wait for these games like once a week or twice a week. And if you don't play well, then you just sit in your hotel room, you think about it all day, all night. And like,
Not
it's a
great.
grind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, first off, congratulations on being a father, and that's
Thank you.
awesome. But yeah, going off of what you were kind of saying, I do sometimes feel like I do miss a lot of like important things, especially like my best friends getting married or all that kind of stuff, like back home. But I do know like there's just like a really small window of when I can play basketball, and I do want to like really hold on to that and just make the most of it. But yeah, like you were saying, it does get lonely. But I think for me, it's worth it because I just kind of love traveling and experiencing new things in that way.
Yeah. I would say that honestly, I would say that's like super refreshing because like hearing your take on it, I would say that you're not like you're not saying like the loneliness or like, language or culture barrier, those things don't exist or the pressure doesn't exist, especially, you coming over as you're not like a local player. So
Mm.
you have a different status and there's a lot of pressure with that. So you're not like downplaying that, but at the same time, I would say that I feel like I'm just hearing a lot of gratitude in your answer, which is really refreshing. Cause I don't hear that when I talk to people, and I talk about a lot of people playing overseas.
Oh,
Uh,
well, yeah, I guess I'm really lucky because every experience has been, for me, really good. Or sometimes I just block out the bad and I'm just being delusional, but it's been good in my head. So, yeah.
Nice. No, that's awesome. I mean, what you said to start is like you get to play the game of basketball. You get to play the game you love, and get paid to do
Mhm.
it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And then one thing that's been really great for me is just seeing different cultures and meeting different people and just realizing like, man, I really grew up in a bubble. Like even within like, you think like, okay, I grew up in the Bay Area and I'm thinking, oh, dang, I went to school in Boston. Like the Bay Area is such a bubble. And I'm like, oh, there's Boston and then I started playing in all different places in the Midwest and different places, in the NBA. And I'm like, man, I really lived in a bubble. And then now I'm playing overseas and I'm like, okay, nah, the whole US is a bubble. Yeah,
Yeah.
the whole US is a bubble for sure. So always expanding my perspective and even like learning different communication styles, coaching styles, different things
Mhm.
like that. Just culturally, it's been really, really eye opening for me.
Yeah, and ultimately, like just learning about yourself, really, and just growing in that. And I think a lot of people don't get those experiences, and just being, like you said, to get outside of the bubble. So I think that's pretty cool too.
All right, before we get into the next part of our conversation, I just want to thank our sponsor for today's podcast, McDonald's. Little do people know, I love McDonald's. I go to eat at McDonald's often, including tonight's dinner. And I've been hearing from my friends in the U.S. there is a barbecue bacon quarter pounder with cheese And hopefully we get it out here in Taipei soon. And if you're listening to this podcast right now, don't forget to order the barbecue bacon quarter pounder with cheese, whether you get it there to fill your day or you order it on delivery. Definitely check it out. And thank you to McDonald's for sponsoring this podcast. And Natalie, you were the first ever woman's Asian American McDonald's All-American in high school. What was that experience like for you?
Oh, it was a huge honor. Being a McDonald's All-American and also Jordan Brand was like really like something that I always like wrote in my journal when I was younger. And that was a big goal I had for many years, and just being able to accomplish that and also represent my community in that way was really, really special for me, and something that I'll cherish forever. So yeah, it was a really great experience.
Was there anything like really cool behind the scenes? Did they like give you a super cool like gift bag or thing or anything, or like, you know, what were there some cool behind the scenes stories that like nobody knows about?
Nobody knows about. Oh God, it feels like so long ago, but I mean, they give us so much gear. I have bags and bags of McDonald's stuff, that I just like I never wear because I just cherish that moment in my life so much, and it's just like in boxes. But what I like remember most is just being surrounded by such greatness, even like at the high school level. I mean, you see a lot of them playing in the NBA now, in the WNBA, and just being in that environment was just really inspiring for me and really pushed me to be even better. And yeah, it was such a great time. I think that was the first time I ever went to Chicago too. And like we said earlier, I love traveling, and so it was a really great weekend for me.
Nice. Did you get to explore Chicago at all or not really?
Yeah, just a little. I saw the bean, but
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
it was really cool. Really great experience. Where was your favorite like arena to play in?
I'm not gonna lie, my favorite was Staples, which now
Staples.
is Crypto.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, but
that's
I like, yeah, just everything.
yeah.
And then I would say like Staples and MSG are like the obvious ones.
Mm-hmm.
I hated Denver and Utah because of elevation. It was just
Yeah,
it would be like you running up, like you run up and down the floor twice, and it'd just be like I need, like it was just like I couldn't breathe. I'm
yeah.
trying to think
That's
like what was the underrated, like an underrated one I'd probably say is like I loved Toronto. Just the
mm,
fans and everything. Like it just the atmosphere out there was always fun. So
yeah. I
yeah.
relate to the Utah, Colorado because they were in our conference in the Pac-12, and we would
Uh,
have to play them like on the same weekend. And my team, UCLA, would like shove like beet juice down our throats because it like helps us be in
yeah.
shape or something. And no matter like how prepared you think you are, that elevation is just insane. And
Yeah.
it's just a totally different factor that just you don't really think about, but it definitely makes a difference. So yeah, I can relate.
Yeah, they always try to give you like these tips and they never work. They're like,
They
oh yeah, we're
never.
going to get there early and then we're going to have practice. And then in practice, we're going to try to do a little more conditioning, get up and down so that your heart rate can get up and you can get used to elevation. You know, take this supplement and do this and whatever. And then the game starts. First 2 minutes, it's like, get me out the game. I need a breather. Yeah.
Yeah, first one gone, second one immediately. Yeah, relatable. It's insane. Yeah.
Nice. That's hilarious. Um, So earlier I mentioned, you know, you blazing a path for Asian Americans. I wanted to touch. Actually, I didn't want to just touch on it. I want to talk a bit about it. But what was that like growing up Asian American? And even like your mom was an accomplished athlete, an accomplished basketball player, and your coach.
Hmm.
Kind of how did all of that factor in to your experience? And you know, we can kind of take this in any direction because I'm sure there's so many parallels between your story and mine. But
Yeah.
the
I
first one,
was
just
just
starting
thinking,
overarching.
yeah, I was just thinking that I could ask you the same question, because you were actually my role model. But yeah, like you said, I guess I always start with my mom because I should. And so she, like you said, she played professionally in China, and she was like pro like at the age of 12 or something. I think someone like saw her run, and they're like, oh. she can be a good athlete, I guess. And so that's how she started. And then when she and my father immigrated here to the States, she didn't know the language. She didn't really know anyone, but she knew basketball. And good for us that basketball is universal. So she really went into that and became a skills coach in the Dallas Fort Worth area. And so, yeah, that's how I started. I was like around 5 years old, and when she started integrating me into her workouts and skills trainings. So, and then, I mean, till this day, when I come home from my seasons in other countries, I still work out with her. And she's my go-to, and she still gives me tips when I ask for it. When I was younger, she would tell me no matter what, but now we have like a better balanced relationship when it comes to coach-player. So she'll give me some advice, but yeah, it all starts with her, and I'm really grateful for her.
I want to ask, like, what was a turning, like, I'm assuming there's probably a turning point or a turning period of time where you talk about like, oh, like certain boundaries, or like she will only give advice if I ask for it, or things like that. Like, kind of how did that evolve? Because I had a very interesting path with my mom where, you know, she didn't play basketball, but she feels like she can give me all the advice in the world to be a head coach or something. So kind of, I just wanted to hear, but now, we have a great relationship. And I always love having her around. So I kind of want to hear about your experience with your mom.
I mean, I honestly, like, in hindsight, I wouldn't have it any other way. I wouldn't be the person or the woman I am today if it weren't for my mom and everything she did for me and sacrificed for me. But I do know, like, the younger Nat didn't like it. And sometimes I think it was hard for both of us to kind of differentiate, like, the player coach and then the daughter mother, because it just always, like, it always came back to the house, and and it's okay. It's okay. She was doing her best, and that was how she knew that's how she grew up. But yeah, it was pretty hard. But she tried her best, so it's okay. But I think it was like UCLA, like my sophomore junior year of college, where she, I think, really turned into that fan instead of like the coach, and just realized how basketball isn't forever and it doesn't define me or her really. And so that's when I think our relationship in that way transformed.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome, because I think you and your mom really got there a lot earlier than me and my mom.
Mm-hmm.
But again, like, I wouldn't have it any other way. And I say this publicly, privately, but my mom, and I'm sure your mom, is like, they're just superheroes. And I always say this, like, to my family, I'm like, man, if I could love my son with even like half of the love that like my mom gave to me, like, I would really consider it a success, because my mom literally, like, she like gave up her dreams and her chance of doing everything she wanted to for me and my brothers. So
Yeah.
without a doubt, like, the type of sacrifice that, especially the immigrant experience, it's like something that we'll never understand.
Never. Yeah, they're actually the ones that did the hard stuff. We're the
Yeah,
ones that are like kind of reaping. Well, for me, I'm like reaping the benefits,
for
and also
sure.
being like a younger sibling. My sister and my mom, in hindsight, were doing the really tough things, and I'm just kind of like coming behind them. So I'm really am thankful for my mom and everything she did. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's
Yeah.
super cool to hear. And hopefully, hopefully she gets to hear it as well on the podcast, because, and same with my mom, just, wouldn't be here without her for sure. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, but yeah, like, I'm very curious, like, how was your experience with your Asian American identity? Because I'm assuming, kind of growing up, um, you step on the court, you're gonna be subtly disrespected. You're gonna be
Mm-hmm.
very openly and blatantly disrespected,
Mm-hmm.
and people won't give you the same opportunity. People will be quicker to count you out, take longer to believe in you. The whole nine. Kind of, I want to just ask, like, how was your experience with your Asian American identity, and how did that evolve over time?
I like grew up in pretty like I grew up around a lot of Asians in my community, but um, so I was surrounded by that like in school and all. But as I like got into like the basketball world, it became less and less and less at the levels that I was playing at and pursuing. I do like remember like when I was playing AAU, that like the first couple of years, like getting out of Texas and like in that national level. Yeah, a lot of people like I would walk past teams and they'll be like, "Oh, they got an Asian," and at that time, I have to shout out my coach at the time, Jason Terry. He played on the Mavericks, and he had a daughter that was my age that wanted to play basketball, so that's why he created a team. Um, and so he would like take us to all these national tournaments and stuff. But yeah, every time, I mean, he drew so much attention, and then he'd like pants to me, like an Asian little girl. And at the time, I was really short. I like, they're just like, oh, why is she on the team and all that? And then like on the court, they're like, oh, I want to guard the Asian, thinking like
Yeah.
it'll be easy. But I think I found a lot of joy in like seeing their like realization but like saying like when I let my game speak for itself and just like
Yeah.
saying like oh like she's not someone that we can really mess around with. I just
Yeah.
like I love that and it just that really fueled me. Yeah,
No,
that's
that's
like
awesome.
mm-hmm.
I vividly remember like we were at AAU Nationals in Cocoa Beach, and you have to have like I don't know, there's like whatever 100 some teams or something, and they all go to the whatever that the
Mm-hmm.
opening thing where they like call out each team, and you have to like walk up and then walk. And I remember
Yeah.
just like I hated that every year
Mm.
because like I would walk on stage and then walk down the middle, and I would like my face would turn red, and I would like always have my head down because I could just hear like the same thing. It's like, yo, that's Yao Ming, like, like, oh, they got an Asian, like, where are they from, like, and so on. And so it was just like so embarrassing for me, and I always try to keep my head down, and then like lo and behold, jump ball, they're all, I want to guard him, no, I want to guard him, no, I want to guard him.
Yeah.
And it was just something that like I realized like dude, I just like, I'm not gonna talk trash.
Mm-hmm.
Um, cause like you'll never win because it's like one versus everybody. At the end of that, it was the same thing. It was like the satisfaction of just like them just being in disbelief. And I kind of like thrived off of that. And I just made it like, I just carried that chip on my shoulder for very long. I allowed the chip to get too big, to the
Mm-hmm.
point where at times it would be detrimental.
Uh-huh.
But definitely I can relate to that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, how did you kind of handle, or like, how did you, how did you handle that? Or was it always something that like really like gave you a positive, like were you able to turn it into positive energy, or was that tough?
Yeah. I mean, like, sorry. So going back to what you were saying, I always got the, oh, that's Yao Ming's daughter. It's like, oh, is Yao Ming your dad? And then, like, as I got older, it's like, oh, is Jeremy Lin your brother? And all that. And I was
Oh
like,
man.
and I never, like, I mean, I'm really proud of, like, Yao Ming and also you. So I was like, I don't see it as a bad thing, but I'm like, come on. Like,
Yeah.
can we come up with something or don't say anything at all, actually.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I think, what you were asking, like how I dealt with that, I have to thank like my mom and also Jason Terry for just kind of shielding me in that way. I wasn't really I heard it, I like kind of reacted, but I didn't really think on it and ponder it at that young of an age. But I will say like Jet and my coaches and my mom kind of shielded me from all of that, and I didn't really like that, but like you said, it definitely fueled me, and it just brought me so much satisfaction to like show them and let my game prove. I mean, talk for itself. And like you said, I never talked back. I'm really quiet on the court. I like if anyone trash talks me, I'm never gonna say anything back because first of all, I'm like too tired to, and also I just don't want to focus on that. But yeah, I think I have to thank the people that were around me at the time for helping me through that. So,
Nice.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. Was that like I guess like what we're, I think that's something that would be really helpful for some of the listeners. Like, um, how, like, who were, like, maybe what's one or two stories of kind of somebody who helped you through that? Because I would say, like, the loneliness of being the only, whatever it is, the only Asian, the only female, the only anything, like, I think that's something that, especially, post COVID and, with it,
Mm-hmm.
with social media becoming more rampant, actually, like, people are feeling increasingly more lonely or harder
Yeah.
to relate to other people, or just feeling like it's harder to open up, or, like, how were people, like the people around you that you talk about, how are they able to kind of guide you through that?
Yeah. Well, first one that comes to my head would be Coach Corey Close from UCLA.
Mm.
I don't think it was until then that she really helped me embrace who I was. Because I had some coaches growing up that unfortunately didn't, but yeah, Coach Corey really like wanted me to explore my culture and like that's never really no one really told me to do that before. And she went above and beyond. She like had a documentary made about me and my mom, and she she just really thought my story was special before I thought my story was special, and she just instilled that belief that my story was worth telling. So she gave me a lot of confidence in sharing my story. So I would say like the person that comes to mind would be Coach Corey from UCLA.
Hold on, I gotta go watch this documentary. What's it called?
All for one. Yeah, I
All for
think
One.
it was
All right,
called
I'm definitely
Senior
I'm
Year.
definitely gonna check that out.
Yeah, it's basically my mom and I's story. But yeah, Coach Corey just like really was like, oh, we're doing this. And so I really appreciate that.
I love what you said though. Like, just the phrase that stuck out to me was, like, she wanted to tell my story, or believe in my story before I even did. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's like, and the best part about that is, like, she wasn't even Asian.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
and I think that's like, in today's, news cycle, and you hear so much negativity, which there is. But the person, like, the most influential person for me when it came to really, like, understanding and dealing with my Asian American identity and racism, things like that, was Coach Blakeney, who was a Duke McDonald's All American, and he was my assistant coach at Harvard, and he's African American, and he talked about his experience as an African American and getting called the N word and getting food thrown at him and all types of, and so, like, and the same thing, he sat me down and he told me what was going to happen in my life before it even happened. And when he told me that, I laughed in his face. I was like, "You're crazy." And he said, "No, dude, like, you're an NBA player." And this was when I was averaging like 12 points in the Ivy League. I wasn't even crushing it. And he was like, "You're an NBA player." And so I think that's just, for a lot of people who are out there listening, hopefully, you all find people around you, that, again, like, believe in you even more than you believe in yourself. Like, I would say that's been so instrumental for me as a player, and what I want to try to do for, some of my younger teammates, or, the other people around me, is like, how can I, um, it's almost like you're forecasting, like you're supporting this vision of them that maybe they don't even believe in themselves. But that's just like a great story, and a great anecdote for just like solidarity, and also just like how you were able to kind of grow and evolve as a person and player.
Yeah,
So
she really, yeah, person for sure. And I have to shout out UCLA women's basketball because they're number one right now, and they're the only undefeated team in NCAA. So I'm a really proud Bruin right now. Anyways, but yeah, shout out
no,
to you.
that was actually going to be my next question, because actually I don't know if this is correct, because I think I so, like, I'll follow some of the box scores. But the last time I checked, they were like 20-0. Is that right? Or are
Yeah,
they 20
something
and
like
one?
that. They're
20-0.
something, yeah, they're I don't know, but they're doing so well, and it's
Yeah.
I know like Coach Corey, and I would like to go into this. I would ask you the same question. Well, her definition her definition of success was never like winning. It was what she did for me, like helping me become a more mature, and I grew a lot. Like just becoming a more well-rounded woman, and that's her definition of success. But right now, just to see them winning so much is just like so great because I know that they deserve it so much.
You obviously hear a lot about Juju Watkins, USC. and how they're doing, but they're ranked like number 4, I think. And they're not as good as UCLA. UCLA is kind of just somehow more under the radar as an undefeated number 1 team in the nation. But I just wanted to hear your take on women's basketball, whether it's college basketball, the WNBA, even the new league, Unrivaled, that
Yeah.
started, and in general, just like everything that's happened within the last, like, I don't know, 2 to 5 years for women's basketball. Like, how do you feel about it?
Oh, I am so excited. I will say UCLA runs LA in every way.
Yeah.
Go Bruins. But yeah, this growth that we've seen, this movement is just like so like it's amazing. It's like you said, the last 5 years. It's just something that I'm really excited about, and I think it deserves. I mean, personally, obviously, because I just know how much work, time, effort that everyone has put into it, and I'm just really, really excited to see how much more the women's game can grow. But I think it's been a long time coming, and I think it's really well deserved. And I mean, I think the product of women's basketball is so good and elite, and it can only get bigger from here. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome to see, and
Yeah.
the sold out arenas and the hype,
Yeah.
and even like
Mm-hmm.
the pregame outfits and everything, and the entertainment and the collabs and different things like that. Like, and the musicians and the NBA players, or it's cool to see just everybody coming out to support.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So
Yeah, really proud.
so I think women's basketball for a while has gotten uh not as much respect as you all deserve. I would say, like, what's one misconception, or what's one thing that you wish like people knew, or people did think or didn't think about women's basketball?
Um,
Especially when it like it's essentially narrative change, right? Like, what's something that you wish was different about how women's basketball has been viewed in the past?
yeah, similar to I think what we were talking about just before, just like the comparison. I think we're compared. I mean, obvious, like of course we are, but we're compared to like the men's game, and I think it is completely different. I mean, I'm not going to do what you do because I'm just not, and I think like, oh, they need to lower the rim so they can dunk, and they need to do all that kind of stuff. Like I don't. I just women's basketball as its own like product is like its own thing, and I think like men's basketball, women's basketball, they're just different. I mean, play the game differently, and I think each is like really unique, and each is special in its own way. So I like I so yeah, I think that's my answer.
So when I was at Harvard,
Mm-hmm.
like, obviously the men's team and the women's team are very close, and we're rooting for each other and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me, just like I saw very up close, like, the women's team, they're way better. They're way better shooters. Like, they're just more skilled in certain, like, because you don't, the game is different. And so, like, what the women's game is, like, what the players are good at, like, they can do things that us on the men's team, like, they're a lot better at certain things. And so to me, that was just like, I was like, damn, I have a lot of like respect for that level of skill, because I can train all day and I might not ever be able to do what a lot of women's players will be able to do. And so I think it's just like, what are you expecting? Like, are you expecting these like alley-oop dunks? Or are but if you understood the game at a deeper level, or if you really were able to appreciate the art, the skill, and the talent that's being displayed, like, and I mean, even for me now, like, sometimes I'll watch the highlights, or I'll watch different things from women's basketball and be like, oh, I love that footwork, like, and I'll rewind it and I'll be like, watch, like, I'm still picking up things from women's hoopers, and whether even like in college or things like that, where it's just like, oh, that was a nice read, or that was nasty, like, oh, I need to learn that. And so just really understanding and appreciating the art that is being brought from the women's side as well, is something that, I think we're getting there. We're getting
Yeah,
there. I mean, definitely on the right path, but
yeah,
there's more work to be done.
yeah. But I also just want to say like even like what you're doing and like what were like giving me this opportunity to share my story and stuff. I think storytelling is just so important, and that's something that needs to continue to happen, especially like on the women's side, to keep this momentum going, because it just kind of shows how special um, each individual is. So I also wanted to thank you for being open to sharing a women's basketball player's story too. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem at all. Not a problem. So, speaking of women's basketball, shout out again to our sponsor, McDonald's. They partners with Angel Reese for the Angel Reese Special, which features the barbecue bacon quarter pounder with cheese. That's super cool to see McDonald's continue to invest into the sport and especially into women's basketball.
I was wondering what like your definition of success is, because mine has like changed and evolved as I've gotten older. But I would like to know what yours is like at this moment.
Yeah, like I'm in my that's crazy. I actually forgot. I'm in my 15th or my 16th season. Well, that's pretty embarrassing. I forgot, but it's been a long time. But I would say like that's a great question, and success has completely just it's changed. The definition has changed so much. But right now, what I'm really trying to go for is having the most fun and being the most joyful. I'm naturally by nature a very anxious, high strung player on the court, and I play very desperate, like I guess in a good way. Like I play every possession like it's like the most important one, and but there's also this like there's this intensity and this like anxiety of like, are we gonna lose? Are we gonna lose? Like make sure we don't lose, and that's basically what I'm thinking the whole time, the night before, the day of, and during the game. And I think there's obviously that desire and that ambition is great, but it's kind of gone too much. So for me, given my personality and kind of my struggle with pregame anxiety and some of the things that I've talked about in the past in different avenues, like my definition that I'm really trying to go for right now is like, how can I be the most joyful? How can I have the most fun? How can I smile the most on the court? That's my version of success, which is why I really gravitated towards your initial answer of like, when I asked you like, how's it going? The first thing you talked about was actually of gratitude. And so me and my sports psychologist, like we focus a lot on that, like gratitude, and recognizing the things that you're grateful for. And even when you talk about your mom, or when you talk about your experiences, like that's something I've noticed from you. It's like, wow, like you really have that, like that fundamental, like everything underlying is gratitude. And I think like that's actually something that I picked up from you, and I'm like, man, I need to learn how to do that more. So that's my current definition of success. What's yours?
My definition of success right now, I just like chasing joy, I think, and just not by like when growing up, I was such a numbers person. I was like, oh, how many points did I get? What was my percentage? What are my ranks right now? Like I was so into that, and I am like, I'm getting out of that and knowing like who I am on the court is not who I am in life. So similar to you, just like chasing joy and just releasing, like just having fun. That's my right now in this season that's my definition of success. But I would love to go back because unfortunately, well, I also kind of struggle with like anxiety and but mine comes from people pleasing and wanting to impress everyone, which is impossible. And I'm coming to be better, but I was wondering what you do like before games to really keep yourself grounded and in that.
Yeah, I mean that's and that's evolved through the years too. But like for me, now my routine is, well, like faith is big for me. It just like I basically try to like rest in the fact that like God has unconditional love for me, meaning like no matter how well I play or how poorly I play, my identity doesn't change. So I always try to like first just find time to breathe and rest in that. And so I try to be still. It could be like 5 minutes, it could be 10 minutes. I'm not going to lie. A lot of times my mind is spacing or my mind is racing or my mind is like getting distracted and thinking about like, okay, today we're gonna, they're gonna be double teaming me, and what plays am I gonna, I'm thinking about like the strategy, and it's like I have to like keep pulling my mind away from like that thinking and overthinking and back into the fact that like I'm fully loved and secure in who I am, Jeremy the person, not Jeremy the basketball player. And so I try to sit in that. Then I spend some time praying, and then once I kind of get to the gym, there's different breathing that I do, but there's one that's really like effective for me, where it's like basically it's like an 8-second inhale and an 8-second exhale, and you do that multiple times. But that really, like, focusing on my breath makes me like present. It makes me there in the moment. And so like I can't think about the future and like what I hope is going to happen, or what I'm afraid is going to happen. I can't think about the past, any past mistakes, or maybe I had a bad first quarter or whatever. So there's times, even if anytime I feel any type of anxiousness or anxiety, I'll do that. And I'll do that sometimes in the middle of the first quarter, in the middle of the third quarter. Like if I get subbed out, or sometimes I'll ask to like, hey, take me out real quick. And I'll go into the side underneath the arena. Like you can, in most arenas, you can go underneath kind of where everybody's sitting. And I'll go underneath there. I'll like get on one knee, and I'll just do that breathing just to like get back to the present. And it's been really helpful for me. There's a lot of other tactics and different things, whether it's like subconscious questions, affirmations, gratitude statements, or like all different visualization, meditation. Like I've done pretty much everything in all of those. And there are times when I'll add that in. But kind of what I described right there is the most fundamental parts of what I do. And then sometimes the visualization, sometimes, the affirmations or the subconscious questions or things like that. I'll add all that in there at times as well.
Yeah, got you.
Yeah.
Just going back on what you said, aren't we like so lucky that we serve a God that loves us for not because of our performance, but just because of who we are? Like that's just so freeing to me, and I unfortunately sometimes forget that because I care too much about what other people think. So thank you for reminding me again that
Yeah.
that's honestly all that matters at the end of the day. But I was wondering, like, so with your journey, like with mental health and stuff, do you think it's gotten better, like, or has it just been something that you've been really dealing with, like? Because I hope like one day I won't overthink, and one day I won't be anxious about the little things. And so I was wondering, from your experience, does that get better, or is it really just like that's just who I am? But yeah, so what do you think?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, for me, I would say like the thoughts and the frequency and consistency of the thoughts don't change, but what has changed is how I'm able to deal with them. And so like when I was in my first few years as a pro, it was very like, one day I'm not going to deal with this. It's just my first few years. Like it's my rookie year, it's my second year, it's my third year. Like I just got, now there's more pressure. Okay, people, like I have more fans. It's just part of it. Like eventually it'll go away. But I realized like my personality is my personality, and that's okay. Like learning to accept that and be okay with that was really freeing for me, like really liberating for me. And it's like, and it's not even like something like, it's something that I used to think was like, it's really wrong with me. And my sports psychologist and I have been kind of working on like, actually, it's what makes me great. It's part of what, like the anxiety and that like intensity and the pressure that I feel, that's what makes me better than other people. And so he's like, instead of like describing it as something bad, like he's teaching me how to lean into it more, accept it more. And by doing that, it's not going to consume me. It's not going to negatively harm me. In fact, like leaning into the anxiety and the pressure and that intensity that I have will allow me to flourish more. And so those thoughts and how I manage those thoughts is something that I'm better at, but it will never go away, and I'm not perfect at it. And, I'm actually thinking about like potentially going on medication for certain moments when the pregame anxiety gets really bad. Cause for me at times, especially like the most important games or during the playoffs, it like really peaks to the point where when the game starts, I have no energy. Um, and so I'm thinking about like kind of like, should I get some, that's something that we've teased the idea between my therapist and my sports psychologist. So I'm trying to figure that part out. But I would say like, I say that just to kind of humanize the fact that um, like it doesn't mean that removing it altogether is not something that needs to happen and not something that will probably happen in most cases. But I'm really excited for you and that journey because, like, I think like as you evolve and get there, it's just like, it's really cool. And like, a phrase that like my agent always tells me, cause I'm very mathy also, like everything is math it's just a bunch of constant calculations in my head. Um, and he always tells me like, don't count. That's like our go-to like phrase. It's like, don't count. It's like, okay, if I'm averaging like 20 points a game and it's a third quarter, like I need to get to 15 to be on pace. Okay, stop counting. Like, oh, my plus minus is -6 and it's the second quarter. So don't count. Like, oh, we're at this ranking and, the second place team is, and they're about to play. So don't count. Like, and then that's where like where you said Coach Corey, it was like never about winning, and that's something that I learned from Kenny Atkinson, who is now like crushing it with the Cavs in his first season as head coach there. But he was always like, let's not put too much emphasis on the result. Let's focus on being present. Let's focus on like the journey and where we're at today. And let's just focus on being good people and doing things the right way. And then like whatever is supposed to come will come and we can accept that and we can hold our head high. But like, let's not be worried about that. Like essentially what he's saying is don't count. Just be here, be here right now. And so these are some of the things that I've seen at a high level, just be really, like people around me that I've been trying to learn from and really try to just reframe the way I think about things. And so, my sports psychologist always tells me, he's like, man, just get rid of the math. Like, stop mathing. Like, mathing sucks. Like, just stop the math. And so it's the same concept, like don't count.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I'll definitely take, because I've always been like, Nat, stop overthinking, stop doing that. And then recently I had a coach who was like, Nat, what if that's just who you are? And it's gotten you this far. So just like lean into that. And so I really thank you because I needed that. And I'm definitely still on my journey. But I'll always keep that in mind and don't count, because during the game I'm just like, okay, how many points do I have? How many is this? So I'm just gonna remember, don't count, because it's not productive. So yeah, that's really good.
Yeah. And uh like by telling yourself don't count, it's not like all of a sudden you're gonna stop counting. It's just a reminder that every time that you do count, you just remind yourself to not count, and that muscle starts to get stronger so that you can go from a place of counting and anxiousness to don't count, and you're able to quickly get out of that faster. And the same concept of like shooting, right? Like my shooting coach that I worked with a lot, Doc Shepler, his whole thing was next one's in. Like after every miss, he would just say next one's in. Um, Not in the sense of I'm actually going to make every shot, right? But in the sense of training that muscle of being able to, oh, I missed, that's okay because the next one's in. Like I'm already on to the next one. Like I'm already back into where I'm supposed to be, which is the present, which is this shot. And so like I still have to tell myself don't count like 100 times in a game, and that's okay. Like it's not like by saying don't count like in 2 games I'm never gonna have to. I'm never gonna think about it. So we've been seeing a lot more growth in AAPI athletes. For you as a trailblazer, which is not at all to say that your story is done. Your story is still going, and I'm very excited to see kind of where your career goes. But what's like a piece of advice that you would give either younger AAPI athletes or yourself when you're younger? Some that like you
Mm.
wish that you knew, or something that you really want this next generation of hoopers and athletes to know?
Um, I would have told myself like God has put you where you need to be, and to stop over like being just stop like thinking, and like you're where you need to be. And just to really stay like what we've really been talking about, stay in the present and trying to soak up and learn everything that you can like in this moment. But yeah, I think that's what I would tell myself, and also to put less pressure on myself. But um, yeah, like you said, there's just so much growth in like all sports for AAPI youth, and I think that's just amazing. And I do want to go back to what you're doing with the Jeremy Lin Foundation, and I know y'all's mission is to like walk alongside and love and serve and support the AAPI youth through like leadership, and also it's also narrative change, and I think that's just so cool and something that I think I needed when I was younger, because you're not only changing how others view you, but also how you view yourself. And I think what y'all are doing is really cool, and I'm really grateful for all the hard work you guys have put in.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Actually, it's like kind of us, because Natalie's actually an ambassador for the Jeremy Lin Foundation. So, which is really cool, because I know Steph had interviewed you coming out of UCLA, which, by the way, was my dream school. My brother and sister-in-law both went to UCLA. And so I really wanted to go. Like, we used to play until like 1 a.m. or whatever at the Wooden Center, and then
Yeah.
go to what I think it's called Puzzles. Go to Puzzles and get like, I don't know if that's there anymore, but it was like basically this late night spot where we would get like clam chowder or different things. And then my brother every day would like look up the menu from all the different like cafeterias and be like, oh, this one has smoothies, let's go there today. And so I was big into UCLA. But yeah, no, you're actually an ambassador for our foundation. And yeah, it's definitely something that we're trying to do. And I would say, like, even for me, like, definitely what you said is like, who are you outside of your sport? Who are you outside of your performance? Like, have to figure that out. And I always try to tell people, like, if you're not content with who you are and where you're at today, like, you won't be content, even if you get to, your desired destination, or even if you get to where you want to go and beyond. Like, if you don't figure out who you are today, and if you don't figure out how to be content today, like, you won't be satisfied when you get there. And one thing that I wanted to add to is just, and maybe, I know this happens a lot in Asian culture, but it's the comparison game that is just such a thief of joy. And like, even for me, like, I always struggled with shooting. That was always kind of one of the biggest things that, like, I was not good at. And so people were like, oh, make them shoot. And then I spent so much of my career and my life comparing myself to all the best shooters in the NBA, wishing I could be like them. And, I wish I could be like Steph. Why can't I shoot like Steph? Why can't I shoot like Dame? Why can't I shoot like, and it was always this comparison early on. And it wasn't until I was like, you know what? I'm going to stop trying to make my shot everybody else's shot. Like, oh, I'm going to spend this off season and I need to get my shot exactly like Steph, or next off season exactly like Dame. And it wasn't until I was like, no, like, I'm Jeremy and this is my shot and it's a great shot. Like, and that's when I actually started to like take off as a shooter. And, to the point where I was able to kind of achieve my goal, be a 40+% 3-point shooter, and kind of take tougher threes, make tougher threes, and all that. Like, that came with me just letting go of the comparisons, me, just accepting who I am and understanding that, like, I don't need somebody else's shot. I just need mine. And that's good enough. And that's something that hopefully a lot of the young Asian athletes, like, I'm not saying you can't model or you can't learn from other people. That's different than like the strong, like the toxic comparison. That's, there's a difference there. And so just figuring that out.
Yeah, for sure. And like with the whole thing with social media does not help. So
Yeah.
I'm also on that same journey, but yeah, I've just learned so much in this conversation. So thank you. That's awesome.
Yeah. No worries. Thanks for thanks for joining. This is a blast, and thanks for your time. And we'll be rooting for you as you head back overseas in about a month or so.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you guys for listening to the conversation with Natalie today. And I learned a lot, and hopefully y'all did too. I think one thing that I had mentioned earlier that I really do like, it just really impressed me, especially for her who's younger in her career, was just having that underlying foundation of gratitude. I just can't stress it enough, just because that's something I've struggled with so much. But even just, really being able to, find just just find gratitude. Like, there's so many amazing things happening in everybody's lives, and there's a lot of hardship as well. But at the end of the day, like, what are we focused on? And when push comes to shove, like, do we become focused on the negative, which in psychology they talk about the negativity bias and how strong and harmful that is, or are you kind of getting yourself back to a place of gratitude? And that's something that I definitely heard from Natalie, and something that was really refreshing for me. And maybe another takeaway that I thought was really good was just her talking about like her faith and her identity as a daughter of God. I know that that's something that I'll spend a lifetime continuing trying to learn at a deeper level. But that's something that really, it was really encouraging for me to hear, just from another athlete, another pro athlete, kind of dealing with some of the same struggles or going through some of the same things. And that's just something that, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, doesn't matter what season of life you're in. That's just something that everybody, at the end of the day, you have to come back to, like, without the things that I am doing or accomplishing, or without my school or without my work, like, who am I? And is that enough? And so it was really cool to hear her talk about her journey in that area as well. Thank you again for tuning in, and thank you to McDonald's. Make sure to try out that barbecue bacon quarter pounder with cheese, and hope you enjoyed the conversation, and subscribe to listen to future podcasts.